An archipelago of more than 7,100 islands, the Philippines abounds in aquatic resources teeming with life. Blessed with a territorial water area of 2.2 million square kilometers, including the exclusive economic zone, its coastal and marine habitats serve home to at least 4,941 species of marine plants and animals. The richness of nature found in the country's marine environment can also be said through to its vast inland bodies of water. Just like the bountiful seas, swamps, rivers, and lakes cuddle diverse flora and fauna. Some of them are considered endemic and cannot be found in any part of the world. Inland resources provide for both food and livelihood to many people who are either into capture fishing or fish farming. The advent of different aquaculture technologies has encouraged a number of fishery stakeholders to shift from capture to growing fish. Hectares of swamplands were converted into fish ponds, while lakes and rivers were used as areas for growing fish in pens and cages. Aquaculture industry flourished, and efforts to develop its potentials emerged. New fish farming techniques, which resulted from intensive research, came along with the introduction of foreign species available for culture. Major aquaculture commodities in freshwater are exotic or introduced. Introduced species like tilapia, carp, and catfish have found their way to the industry and contributed significantly to the production of the fishery sector. In 2012, tilapia accounts for 79.34% of production from freshwater and generated a volume of 260,891.36 metric tons. Carps account for 5.71% of total freshwater production with a volume of 17,703.89 metric tons, while the volume of catfish produced was 3,606.56 metric tons. Furthermore, there were exotic species introduced for aquaculture yet contributed to fishery resource enhancement. Among these are Trichopterus leary, Trichopterus trichopterus, Trigogaster pectoralis, Chana striata, Anabas testudinus, and Labeo rohita. Unlike tilapia, carp, and other fish species, which have been successfully bred here for fish farming business, some of the introduced fish did not become valuable aquaculture commodities. Some species introduced as fish farmers' friend were found detrimental to indigenous life in the wild. These species became invasive. Invasive species are non-native species transported to the new environment where they result to mass colonization. Recent scientific report reveals that in the Philippines, of the 60 introduced species, 8 are invasive and 4 are potentially invasive. Among the invasive species in the Philippines which pose threat to biodiversity and local fishery are knife fish, giant thigh snakehead, jaguar guapote, gloria, walking catfish, and janitor fish. Like most of the other invasive species, knifefish was introduced in the Philippines through the ornamental fish trade. It has a flat, silvery body with long anal fin and 5 to 10 black spots ringed below the lateral line. Knifefish is aggressive and carnivorous in nature, with teeth sharp as razor, bony tongue, and equally sharp gill rakers. Channa micropeltes, known as giant snakehead or toman, is among the largest species and the most aggressive of the 35 snakehead species. It is native to the fresh water of Southeast Asia, and like knifefish, it was introduced to the Philippines through ornamental fish trade. The giant snakehead has the ability to crawl into land and breathe air using its primitive lung. It is also a voracious eater and causes serious damage to prey population as well as disrupts the balance of the ecosystem. Sightings of this aggressive predator in Pantabangan Dam in Nueva Ecija have been reported by the locals in the area. Jaguar guapote, the most predatory and aggressive of all guapotes, preys on small fishes and macroinvertebrates of murky, eutrophic lakes with either muddy or sandy bottom area. It was brought here in the Philippines from Central America in the year 1990 as an ornamental fish. It became a potent threat to the native fish population in Taal Lake because of the luxuriant growth of aquatic vegetation which serves as a spawning ground. Gloria, or black-chin tilapia, thrives in brackish water lagoons and estuaries surrounded by dense mangrove trees where freshwater rivers meet the ocean. They are native to West Africa from Senegal to southern Cameroon. It feeds on algae, microorganisms, and organic matter from dead and decomposing plants. The young are more carnivorous than the adults and include small crustaceans and zooplankton in their diet. Black-chin tilapia, which can tolerate salinity from 0 to 45 ppt, threatens the biodiversity and ecosystem of Manila Bay, where it has immensely proliferated. Native to Southeast Asia, Clarias bataracus or walking catfish is a freshwater fish that has a large accessory breathing organ, which allows it to breathe atmospheric oxygen. Its unique name comes from its ability to use its pectoral fins to keep it upright to walk across dry land to find food or sustainable environment which disrupts biodiversity and ecosystem balance. The walking catfish has an elongated, gray to grayish-brown body, often covered laterally in small white spots. It is scaleless but covered with mucus which protects it when it is out of the water. The janitor fish is famous among tropical fish hobbyists because of its ability to keep the aquarium clean by sucking the algae from the aquarium glass. Its dark brown body is elongated with large head and a bushy face. It feeds on naturally growing algae, detritus, and small crustaceans. The natural spawning ground is characterized by moving water and the presence of narrow caves and hiding places. It is considered a pest with practically no market value in Laguna de Bai, Agusan Marsh, and Pulangi Reservoir where it proliferates. Janitor fish destroys and tears net, which reduces fish farmers' income from escape aquaculture fish stock. It is also a hazard to the ecosystem due to its benthic foraging and the physical habitat brought about by its breeding behavior. Like an enemy that attacks from behind, invasive species can silently break into swamps, rivers, and lakes without the public knowing it until their population grows and containment becomes a huge challenge. Invasive species reach inland bodies of water through different pathways. They can find their way to the wild through ballast water, escapement from aquaculture and fisheries enhancement projects. Some are even carried as hitchhikers, unnoticeably present in transport water and containers along with other species. Ornamental trade is another pathway. Some hobbyists, either out of carelessness or deliberate action, release these species into the wild where they uncontrollably proliferate. Another instance is people unknowingly transfer foreign species from one place to another by means of live bait disposal. Certain species are released as part of cultural or religious ceremonies. Invasive species creates a lot of negative impacts. These include damage to prey population, erosion of biodiversity, disruption of the ecosystem, genetic contamination, disease introduction, and substantial economic growth. According to studies, invasive alien species has caused 50% of global animal extinction and 48% of fish extinction. The invasive species' prolific, domineering, and carnivorous nature causes the number of local fish to diminish. Also, they have become potential carrier of some fish diseases. Aside from being voracious predators, there are invasive fish capable of destroying the environment. The janitor fish, for example, as explained earlier, creates burrows underwater as nests during their breeding activity. This breeding behavior causes the collapse of riverbanks, especially in areas where the fish overpopulates. As a result, other forms of life are disturbed due to the destruction of physical habitats. In effect, the whole biodiversity is compromised. It is important to understand, however, that on top of these negative impacts is the economic loss these invasive species are causing among people whose livelihood depends on the country's inland resources. The overpopulation of invasive species, particularly in inland waters, causes the local fish catch to decline, affecting fisherfolk income. Fisherfolk do not get ample amount of money from their nets, which are swarmed by tons of foreign fish with low economic value. More than 5,000 fisherfolk of Laguna de Bai, for example, have experienced this predicament due to knife fish infestation based on the secondary data from Laguna Lake Development Authority. Meanwhile, some invasive species like knife fish is a menace not only for those in capture fishing but also among aquaculture operators. In Laguna de Bai, knife fish spawns in the lake and their eggs are found adhering to the poles of fish pens. Fish larvae enter and grow inside the pens and prey on the fingerlings of cultured species. The alarming presence of invasive species in the country, particularly knife fish, was reported in May 2011. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, through the National Inland Fisheries Technology Center in Tanay, Rizal, immediately acted on the reported occurrence of knife fish infestation in Laguna de Bai. The agency conducted a resource assessment to know the extent of the problem. Result of the baseline study showed that knife fish comprised more than 40.34% of the catch at an average combined catch of over 3,000 kilograms per day using major fishing gears. The information from the study resulted to the various government interventions to contain the rapidly spreading bullies of Laguna Lake. An interagency technical working group was formed to harmonize the collaborative efforts of member agencies which are composed of the BFAR, LLDA, DTI, DSWD, DOST Picard, DENR EMB, TESDA, DILG, and FARM-C. Member agencies funneled resources to fund the implementation of the various strategies. This includes Cash for Work program on knife fish mass retrieval, development of collection scheme and post-harvest technologies inputting economic value to the fish considered as pest. Apart from the ongoing containment measures, knife fish infestation prompted the government to intensify its major control mechanism in preventing its entry to other bodies of water. Governing provisions of the Fisheries Code, Wildlife Act, and specific laws such as the Fisheries Administrative Order 221 were strictly imposed. Policy review has been initiated to improve the guidelines, particularly on the risk assessment of introduced species. 2 years after the convergence of various agencies, with the support of the fisherfolk and other stakeholders, efforts to contain the predominance of knife fish in Laguna de Bai have paid off. From a baseline data of more than 40.34% in catch component, the volume is now cut to 21%. Nonetheless, the government cannot afford to be complacent. Mindful of the importance of information in engaging the public, the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources continue to invest in conducting wide information, education, and communication or IEC campaign. Information technology is tapped to ensure that the public are informed and participates in the drive against the menace brought about by invasive fish. This is implemented through the establishment of a website where people can get information on the different kinds of invasive species. The website is interactive so that people can immediately report sightings and that the government can immediately respond. The Philippines is remarkably endowed with rich natural resources in which the whole nation benefits. There are threats, however, that must be kept at bay. The invasion of undesirable foreign fish species is included. If left unabated, the whole nation suffers the negative consequence of losing completely the indigenous kind to the voracity of the invasive that lurk in the country's swamps, rivers, and lakes. BFAR is currently bolstering the border security against invasive by strengthening the guidelines for the conduct of risk assessment for live fish importation. The protection of natural resources, however, does not depend on one hand. The invasive species threatening the inland resources will surely meet their end if everyone will act and make a serious stand.